Guys, Nicole here with Obscure Reptiles and Caging, and today we are giving you 6 pro breeder tips. So let's get started. Hey guys, so today we're going over some pro breeder tips if you are breeding ball pythons specifically. We are now going into our 12th breeding season, so we do have quite a few tricks and tips into different videos that we have done in the past, so we figured we'd throw all of them into this one video for you guys. So the number one tip when it comes to breeding your ball pythons is breed them during a storm. So it sounds strange, but let's say you were going to breed your ball pythons on a Tuesday, it's a Saturday, and there's a whole bunch of a change in the weather. There's some storms, some thunderstorms, or especially when two fronts, a cold and a warm front, hit and there's a big change in the barometric pressure. Ball pythons, for whatever reason, they get really riled up when it comes to breeding when that kind of stuff happens. So if you are struggling getting a certain male to breed, a certain female to lock up with anyone, then definitely try pairing them up during a storm. I normally do it. I check the weather. If it's going to happen, let's say tomorrow, I'll pair them up today, and then I'll check on them in 2 days right after the storm, and generally during the storm they start locking and they're done by the next day. Number 2, I've heard this from several other people. I haven't personally had to do it, but I have heard very good results, and that is putting a snake shed into another bin. So the way that this works is if you have a young male, a stubborn male, or just male that's not really breeding, not doing very well, every season all snakes are going to be different, so keep that in mind. But what happens is, let's say you have a male who isn't really breeding and you have a male that is breeding very well. So what you're going to do is wait till that male that is breeding really well sheds. You're going to take that shed and you're going to put it in the female's enclosure. Then you're going to take your stubborn male and put it in the enclosure with the shed and the female. The reason why this works is because the stubborn male will smell his competition. Another male's been there is what he's going to think, and he will then actively breed a lot better than he has in the past. I've also heard of some people putting 2 breeder males together, and they will kind of fight for dominance and rub up on each other, not necessarily attack each other, but that personally I think would cause way too much stress. I would not recommend that. I have heard and seen people do that type of thing, but that's not something I would ever recommend. Just putting a shed from another male in that enclosure with the female is going to do more than enough. So I would not recommend putting 2 males in the same enclosure. Number 3 is I always tell everyone you only need 1 lock for every female for an entire month. So we have an entire breeding video. We have a whole bunch of them, whole bunch of different topics that we go over if you guys are interested in watching them. But when it comes to breeding a female, they really only need 1 confirmed lock for an entire month. So for example, let's say you have 1 male and 4 females. The reason why that can work when it comes to breeding purposes, and some people use them so much, is you let a male breed 2 or 3 days, you take him out and you feed him, and then 2 or 3 days later he's ready to go, and that's been 1 week. And then you can use that same male in a different enclosure the following week if he's eating and everything's going well, because you only need that 1 lock for that 1 female for the entire month. So once the entire month's over and that male has done the same process 4 times in 4 weeks, he then technically can go back to the same female. I see a lot of people overbreeding their females because they think it's going to make it happen faster or better odds, but you have to remember that females can retain sperm for up to a year. I've even seen some cases where people have said 2 years, even 3 years. Not confirmed, but that's just what I've heard. And if they choose at any point to become gravid, even if you bred them in January and now it's December and that female decides now is when she wants to be gravid, that's when it's going to happen. So overbreeding isn't going to help, especially when the female really controls it, and breeding once a month is more or less just working on trying to build those follicles in that female. It takes a few months generally to build follicles to be able to produce, anywhere from 3 to 6 months. So if you're getting 1 lock every single month, it's hopefully helping raise those follicles, get them a little bit larger. I've also heard a couple of people confused when it comes to the ovulation, and ovulation is just the actual moment when the eggs are technically being fertilized. It doesn't happen when the male is in the enclosure. It'll happen afterwards. It'll happen a few weeks or few months after the last male has been inside of the enclosure. You do not need to add another male when this is happening. You don't need to do anything except leave that female alone. that is when you can start tracking when you should be getting eggs. Number 4, I always tell people one of the best signs to know your female is getting closer to that ovulation is you watch for the glow. The glow before they go is what they call it. What that is their whole body will very drastically lighten. We, for example, have a lesser pinstripe who generally is very brown. She's very dark. Her name is Hazel. But when she starts glowing, she actually looks like a hypo. She looks so vibrant, almost orange. She looks like a completely different snake. As I'm breeding her every year, I will start to see the glow. This happens weeks before she actually ovulates or anything like that, but this is a really good sign that she's going in the correct direction. I've actually never seen somebody glow and then not ovulate a few weeks or months later. So glowing is a very, very good sign. It's obviously not going to work for very light snakes or white snakes. You're not going to really see a difference, but even my GHI Mojave, she is very dark. She's almost black. She will turn a lighter brown or lighter gray when she is starting to glow, and that's a really good sign that you're doing everything right and keep it up. Number 5, the best thing you need to do is track the sheds. Last year, I only saw one ovulation, but I had 16 clutches. And every single clutch I was able to guess within 3 days of them actually having the eggs without ever seeing an ovulation. We have entire videos dedicated to showing and telling you guys all the different signs, the glowing, the bull wrapping, what side of the bin they're on, stuff like that. But when it comes to specifically tracking when they're going to have those eggs, they're going to have what's called the pre-lay shed. So this is when you notice that your female has been doing all of these signs we've been talking about, and then instead of being on the cold side, she goes over to the hot side. Once they go to the hot side, during the glow, during all these processes, the female stays towards the cold side, stays wrapped around the water, does all these things on the cold end of the enclosure. As soon as I notice they switch and go to the back, that's when I start paying attention to the shed. Once they're in the back of the cage and then they shed, then I do my countdown, and generally from that day it's 27 days from that shed for them to actually give us their eggs. So what I like to do, so when I think that might be the shed and everything's been changing and I've been paying attention to that animal, I will put a tag on her with the date and then the date we're expecting eggs. And last year we had fantastic results doing that. I don't like to overcheck them. I don't like to bother them too much. If you do that, if you're constantly looking at them, constantly bothering them, and sometimes they're not going to give you eggs then because they're stressed, they don't want to eat, they don't want to breathe, they don't want to do anything. But I've been finding that by leaving them alone more often, not checking on them too often, just giving them the occasional glance, check on them obviously when you're feeding, cleaning, watering, stuff like that. But I don't want to over bother them, over stress them out. So just by checking just those simple sheds and writing down the dates has been wonderful for us. You can also have things like sonogram machines, stuff like that, but we personally don't have one. This is what we've been doing. Maybe one day when we can afford it, we will purchase one, but as of right now, this has been working fantastic. And the last one, number 6, is make sure you're having fun with this. There's nothing worse than having to go down into a snake room, reptile room, and clean a whole bunch of enclosures, get all dirty, all smelly, doing all this hard work, and you're not enjoying it. Make sure you really passionately love these animals. Make sure you're breeding what you want to breed. Make sure you're breeding things that you think might sell, but breed specifically for what you want. Breed for what you're going to be proud to show off and sell to people. Just make sure that you're having a good time and you are enjoying what you are doing. Alright guys, that's it for this video. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We do new videos every single week. So I'll see you guys in the next video.